morning. This is the Paradise Unicorn Priestess bringing you day 303 of A Course in Miracles, the Yin translation, where we use female words. This would be October 30th if you're starting at the new year. What is death? Death is the central dream from which all illusions stem. Is it not madness to think of life as being born, aging, losing vitality, and dying in the end? We have asked this question before, but now we need to consider it more carefully. It is the one fixed, unchangeable belief of the world that all things in it are born only to die. This is regarded as the way of nature, not to be raised to question, but to be accepted as the natural law of life, the cyclical, the changing and unsure, the undependable and the unsteady, waxing and waning in a certain way upon a certain path. All this is taken as the will of God, and no one asks if a benign creator could will this. In this perception of the universe as God created it, it would be impossible to think of her as loving. For who has decreed that all things pass away, ending in dust and disappointment and despair, can but be feared? She holds your little life in her hand but by a thread, ready to break it off without regret or care, perhaps today, or if she waits, yet is the ending certain. Who loves such a God knows not of love, because she has denied that life is real. Death has become life's symbol. Her world is now a battleground where contradiction reigns, and opposites make endless war. Where there is death, is peace impossible. Death is the symbol of the fear of God. Her love is blotted out in the idea, which holds it from awareness like a shield held up to obscure the sun. The grimness of the symbol is enough to show it cannot coexist with God. It holds an image of the child of God in which she is laid to rest in devastation's arms, where worms wait to greet her, and to last a little while by her destruction. Yet the worms as well are doomed to be destroyed, as certainly, and so do all things live because of death. Devouring is nature's law of life. God is insane, and fear alone is real. The curious belief that there is part of dying things that may go on, apart from what will die, does not proclaim a loving God nor reestablish any grounds for trust. If death is real for anything, there is no life. Death denies life, but if there is reality in life, death is denied. No compromise in this is possible. There is either a God of fear or one of love. The world attempts 1,000 compromises, and will attempt 1,000 more. Not one can be acceptable to God's teachers, because not one could be acceptable to God. She did not make death because she did not make fear. Both are equally meaningless to her. The reality of death is firmly rooted in the belief that God's child is a body, and if God created bodies, death would indeed be real. But God would not be loving. There is no point at which the contrast between the perception of the real world and that of the world of illusions becomes more sharply evident. Death is indeed the death of God. If she is love, and now her own creation must stand in fear of her, she is not mother but destroyer. She is not creator but avenger. Terrible her thoughts, and fearful her image. To look on her creations is to die, and the last to be overcome will be death. Of course, without the idea of death, there is no world. All dreams will end with this one. This is salvation's final goal, the end of all illusions. And in death are all illusions born. What can be born of death and still have life? But what is born of God and still can die? The inconsistencies, the compromises, and the rituals the world fosters in its vain attempts to cling to death and yet to think love real are mindless magic, ineffectual and meaningless. God is, and in her all created things must be eternal. Do you not see that otherwise she has an opposite, and fear would be as real as love? Teacher of God, your one assignment could be stated thus: Accept no compromise in which death plays a part. Do not believe in cruelty, nor let attack conceal the truth from you. What seems to die has but been misperceived and carried to illusion. Now it becomes your task to let the illusion be carried to the truth. Be steadfast but in this. Be not deceived by the reality of any changing form. Truth neither moves nor wavers nor sinks down to death and dissolution. And what is the end of death? Nothing but this, the realization that the child of God is guiltless now and forever. Nothing but this. But do not let yourself forget it is not less than this. In today's central idea of death, we are asked to really think about how it is madness to think it natural for life and vitality to be taken down into sickness and decay and death. And indeed, the children that come into this world, we all came knowing that death was unnatural. We had to be taught about death, and we were incredulous. How could that be? We just couldn't believe it. It made no sense. And the Course wants to remind us that it still makes no sense. The story of the Buddha is that he was born a prince, and his father, meaning well, kept from him all sights of sickness, disease, and death. So he grew up believing that bodies were always healthy and just lived forever. And when he stepped outside of his palace and saw not only disease and suffering and death, but also deprivation of all kinds, he was shocked. And it was that shock that drove him on his journey, in which, after he considered many things and tried many paths, he eventually reached the state of enlightenment. The Course wants to remind us of what we all came here knowing, that death makes no sense, and that God could not be love as long as we think death is real. It doesn't matter if consciousness goes on after death. The process of death in any form is cruel. And we are told as teachers of God to not be satisfied with it, to not be satisfied with cruelty or attack in any form. Death is the ultimate attack, and the Course uses the word death to describe any discomfort whatsoever, depression, anxiety, pain, fear. All of these things are a form of death. They are things that seem to take down the beautiful vitality that life naturally has. And we are presented with a world of cycles, cycling through these birth and death patterns, whether it's in the seasons or whether it's in the life cycles of the different life forms that we see. And in many of our ancient religions, including the goddess-worshipping pathways, these cycles are honored and great meaning is drawn from them. And perhaps, as all things are able to be offered up to love and used for the purpose of holiness, these patterns, instead of being an endless cycle that doesn't go anywhere, can be a spiral lifting us higher if we allow them to be, if we use them for love, and a spiral that lifts us out of the illusion entirely. So, since we seem to be in a world of cycles, let us use these cycles for the purpose of love, and let us not believe in death. In the Judeo-Christian myth of Adam and Eve, the concept of death and the cycles of death that we see in the world around us were caused by a choice made by Eve and then Adam following Eve, and therefore the blame put on our ancestors for this choice. And yet, even in that story, God had a part in it, putting it as a choice before them to be made. But even that a loving God would not do, a loving mother would not do. Would a loving mother hide a terrible, deadly weapon in the house within easy reach of the children and then tell them not to touch it and then leave them be? That doesn't make sense. So while indeed we are the ones who made death in order to preserve the separation and hide from love and hide from God, the Course assures us that it is a dream, a nightmare with no reality, and one that we can awake from through forgiveness. We are to wake to that we are love. There is no attack in love, and so we relinquish attack, and we forgive when we think we encounter attack outside of us. And here again, the Course reiterates the denial of the reality of bodies, that they could never have been a thing created by a loving God, because it is inherent in the nature of bodies to be frail and vulnerable, which opens the doorway to the possibility of death. And this is the logic that the Course uses to help convince us that bodies, that physicality, has nothing to do with God, that it is a dream illusion to wake from. This passage says, without the idea of death, there is no world. It does not specify if this refers to what is called the real world, which is what I call paradise. It says all dreams will end with this one. And the Course admits that even paradise is a dream illusion, but it is one of forgiveness. It is a pleasant dream, but still one to be woken from, which suggests that it is not entirely free of the idea of death, but perhaps the idea of death has changed significantly. But still, salvation's final goal, it says, is the end of all illusions, including the illusion of paradise. That is still a dream to be woken from. And it says that in death are all illusions born. Perhaps that is why it says, it is quoting, and the last to be overcome will be death. As far as I can tell, this quote is not found anywhere in that exact form except in A Course in Miracles itself, in this place in the Manual for Teachers. But it is echoed in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians, where it says, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. And perhaps that is what it is referring to, that is what it is referencing. If I were to make a guess at what form death might still take in the real world or paradise, there may still be a form that is likened to a body, but devoid of pain or sickness, and that the only remaining form of death would be a transition that is chosen, a change of form, and that shards of God never disappear behind a veil where they seem to be unreachable by those that are still in bodies, but that communion always continues without interruption. But I'm just guessing here. I don't know. But it does seem that death as an idea in some form is not completely eradicated until all form is done and we have returned to the oneness of heaven and completely awoken from all dreams. So if this is how any remaining idea of death still shows up in the real world or paradise, that does seem to echo and be supported by what the Course says about how the body appears when it has been given over to a holy purpose. It says so many times that in that state, the body doesn't get sick. The body functions perfectly well in perfect health and is a communication device for communicating love and helping us to heal one another and forgive one another and remember God. And that when that shard of God is done using the body, they simply lay it aside like a garment that they take off. So perhaps that is the form that death still takes in the real world or paradise. In today's passage, after we, the teachers of God, have been addressed, saying that another way of stating our one assignment is that we accept no compromise in which death plays a part, to not believe in it. It is cruelty and attack, and we are not to let that conceal the truth from us. We are urged to see that what seems to die has only been misperceived and carried to illusion. And now it is our task to bring illusion to the truth. This is the mystery that I have sought to understand. What is the difference between the attempt to bring truth to illusions versus the task we've been given, which is to bring all illusions to truth? Perhaps we can see it clear in this example. If we, in our dream illusion, see something that appears to die, rather than try to bring truth into it by trying to believe that that is real, we are asked to bring the illusion of death to the truth and be asked to be shown what is true. And this is where the miracle shows up. Again, in the Course, we were invited to begin with what seems to be the most challenging illusion, since there is no order of difficulty in miracles. It invited us to boldly deny death and to bring about the miracle of death not happening. What a bold claim this is. What a powerful message we've been entrusted with in this course. Today's passage closes by reminding us that the end of death is found in the realization that the one child of God is guiltless now and forever. It's not more than this, but we must not forget that it is not less than this. This is what is required: forgiveness. So long as we cherish punishment towards ourselves or towards anyone, so long we will see death. Only let us never lay this at the feet of our mother. This was something that we chose, and just as easily we can choose to relinquish it, and we have been gifted the answer that will heal it, but for the asking. And after reviewing what is the second coming, found in show notes, we go on to Lesson 303. The Holy Christ is born in me today. Watch with me, angels, watch with me today. Let all God's holy thoughts surround me, and be still with me while heaven's child is born. Let earthly sounds be quiet, and the sights to which I am accustomed disappear. Let Christ be welcomed where she is at home, and let her hear the sounds she understands, and see but sights that show her mother's love. Let her no longer be a stranger here, for she is born again in me today. Your child is welcome, mother. She has come to save me from the evil self I made. She is the self that you have given me. She is but what I really am in truth. She is the child you love above all things. She is myself as you created me. It is not Christ that can be crucified. Safe in your arms, let me receive your child. And here we have it again. The child of God, the one child of God, the Christ, cannot be crucified. Only an idol that we made could have ever been crucified. So, if we believe in Jesus the Christ, we believe in one that never could have been crucified to begin with. That was our doing. That was our story that we made because we felt we needed it. We all take part in a oneness that cannot be crucified. Let that be the story that we cherish. That is our lesson for the day. Happy practicing.